Yo, 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 everybody. What's up? Welcome back to the What Now podcast. Spencer and Zach here again in the
Back in
booth.
the booth.
Yeah, I know I said last week that we were going to have some video. I realized that I didn't press record video. So we're recording video today.
Ah,
And we're going to try to start uploading the video so you guys can, one, see our faces and I don't know why you'd want to see our faces, but so you can see our faces, and two, it just gives you like a little bit more insight into kind of who we are. So right now
yeah,
I'm
buddy.
moving. We close on our house this Friday, which is pretty sick. I'm excited about it. And so in my office currently, my home office, I have all kind of stuff. So I'm glad you can see all my things.
And you can see my office, which is our microwave and our hanger. It's basically our storage closet.
Yeah. So what's up, Zach? How are you feeling, man? Let's tell everybody about what's going on today.
Yeah, man, I feel super good. I've been. It's kind of funny. I haven't necessarily prioritized rest, but I think because I'm starting to live in much higher alignment, I have a lot more energy. Even with a new puppy that likes to wake up at 5 in the morning, um, I felt really good. It's been funny. I haven't really felt tired in a long time. And
Yep.
I think that's from a lot of big changes and shifts that I've made personally. And listening to my body and what I really need to do, not trying to force anything, letting everything kind of come about as it is. So, yeah, building a heck ton of momentum and excited to share a little bit more about that as we dive into today's episode. How are you, Spence Dog?
Dude, I feel great. Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we were talking about offline and or off recording in this. And that's how we always be like, oh, this is what we're going to talk about today. So we'll press record. But yeah, I was sharing before we press record, like, dude, I feel awesome. Like, and I think that a big thing really is like you can feel so much more energy, so much more charged up, and build so much more momentum in your life and your practice and all those things when you live in alignment with your state or like with who you're supposed to be. Like when you get closer to fulfilling your purpose, you have more energy because you can tap in like to this infinite source of energy because you're operating out of your power instead of trying to create force.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also a great book, Power versus Force. I haven't read
Yeah,
it, but
that's really good. I
I
should
need.
probably revisit it by
I
David
know.
Hawkins.
Yeah, I know some things about it, but um, yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today is just like what are the small things that we have done in the past and are doing right now to create momentum, because momentum is a thing that doesn't always build. It's a thing that comes and it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but really learning how to re-catch the wave of momentum is kind of the phase that we're in. So what are you doing right now, Zach, that you feel like is helping build momentum?
I think a big thing is getting out of a to-do list and rather a build list, if that makes sense. That's how I'm viewing it. And so you've heard us talk about the power list all the time. We've probably mentioned it every other episode, it seems like. But I've noticed I can get into when things get quote unquote busier, I can get into a task power list where it's like, uh, you know, take the dogs for a walk, just like things that I should be doing anyways, rather than focusing on bigger projects and things that are going to push the business forward. So that's a big thing. Really holding myself accountable on the power list or the build list, as I'm going to start calling it, to build the practice. The other big thing I've noticed when I journal, either at night or before or in the morning, is typically when I not only feel the best, but also when the practice is also doing really well. And so I bought the 5 minute journal. Shout out
Fun.
Nikki Cottis, or Dr. Nikki Cottis, that recommended that. It's been phenomenal. I've been using it for the last 2 weeks, and it literally takes 3 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night, and it just really primes the brain in those alpha and theta wave states to help get the day going and that type of thing. And then number 3 is, and this might sound strange, but not sticking to like a super regimented workout. So like today I could have gone and worked out, but normally Tuesdays I don't work out. So I'm like, I'm not gonna like force this and like throw my day into a blender when I could have a really peaceful morning, which I don't get very often. I can walk the dogs, which when I'm walking, whether it's with Morgan or without, that's when I'm super creative and a lot of ideas come to my mind. And so I did that instead. Almost got a black eye from it. Shout out Blue for that.
He's about to box you up, bro.
But yeah, really not trying to force things, not necessarily go with the flow. I think trying to live in that middle ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, really ride the wave, right? And so those would be three of the bigger things. And then the fourth, and something I'd love to talk more about, is, and something you had mentioned on Steph's podcast, which was great. If you haven't listened to that episode, highly recommend. But really envisioning, okay, what does, and something Morgan and I are both working on together, what does $1 million Zach or $1 million Morgan, what are the $1 million Thompsons, what are they doing, right?
Yep.
Even in the small things, when we finish dinner, what would those two do? And then doing those and starting to act and claim it already has been a big momentum gatherer as well.
Yeah. We should have Nikki on the show. We should get her on. So Nikki, if you listen to our show, we want you to be a guest. But yeah, dude, that's good. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that always initiates momentum for me is getting a clear vision. And if you were at our seminar, that was the first thing that we talk about. I think it always comes back down to that for me is what is the thing that I envision happening in my life, and then reverse engineering how do I need to act and what do I need to accomplish to get there? Like, what are the milestone markers, right? And so, yeah, like it's really just that's what it always comes down to. Like every time I build momentum, it's like, okay, I have a clear vision on the things that I want to change or happen in my life. And then it's saying, okay, well then how do I need to act there? Because if I already was at a state, if I already was the person that was there to attain that, like say a $60,000 month or an $80,000 month or $100,000 month, or someone who leads a Bible study with 10 people, with 5 people, with 16 people, or someone who weighs a certain amount, eats a certain way, works out a certain amount. What are the things that separate me? Like what actions, what character traits that separate me from being that version of myself there, right? And once you can identify them, you say, okay, how do I develop it? Or how do I learn the skills to get there? And so, I mean, that's something that has just, yeah, I think that's probably the most important part. And I think that's why I brought it up on Steph's podcast. I kind of blacked out in that episode, but, you know, I mean, I think that really is the biggest thing. And I think like what the, something else that you said is just like not sticking to a super regimented routine and taking inventory of kind of, you know, where am I at, lets you operate out of your power instead of out of a forceful situation, right? Because you're coming from your inner desires. What is my soul saying? What's my energy need?
Yeah.
Versus I think I have to do this. I need to do that. I should be doing this.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to give just a really tangible, just from how my day is going to go today. I love our new puppy, but he is a rescue, and so he's super matted. And we've been needed to getting him groomed since we basically got him. And the groomer, her only availability is at 3:00 today. And so I had planned on working from home, cutting the lawn during my CEO day. But my mindset initially, when I was setting up this appointment, so just to give like full circle, initially my mindset was, well, now I have to drive all the way back to our house, which is about 25 minutes, pick up the dog, drive him back to Colleyville, and then have 2.5 hours where I'm confined in my office and have to get work done there. Was initially my mindset, and I caught myself. And I caught myself for one reason, not necessarily because I was looking at it so negatively. But Spencer, I think something you and I have both shared is that we really want to be there for our kids one day, right? Like you shared, you want to pick them up from school. One thing I always admired about my dad was he was at every game, and at practices and that type of thing. And that's something I've said I want to do. And so this is how it's showing up right now and how I can already go about it. So why not take that next step to really embrace that and be like, okay, if I have to drive a couple extra minutes to go pick up my quote unquote kid and be there for them, then yeah, I should be willing and excited to do that. This is like almost the universe showing me like, okay, this is what life can look like for you. And you can do both. You can be there for your kid and get work done at the same time. And that's something I'm really trying to claim, is that I can do both. And it's tangible. So I think setting that vision, and then it's funny how things start to appear, and there's that old self that views it really negatively. And then if you're doing the work, which I've started to redo, then it's a lot easier to move in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it ties a lot back into our last episode, how we talked about like the big leap. Like, are you upper limiting yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like we say we want all of these things. Like for me, yeah, I want to pick up my kids, right? For us, like for you, it's like, I wanted another dog, right? I want to take care of my dog in the best
Mhm.
way. I want to be able to have the freedom from the office where the office can run without me. Like that's what we all say as business owners, right? Especially chiropractors. You're saying like, I want an autonomous business. I want an autonomous practice that can generate business without me there. But then when you get the opportunity to actually step out of the
Mhm.
office and do some things that you've
Yeah.
created autonomy with, then I'm about to sneeze. You like get all upset.
Achoo! Bless you. That was me making a sneeze noise. He's gonna sneeze again. This is quality podcast. This is true authenticity.
Well, I muted the mic, but
Dang it.
yeah. A fun fact: we've never actually done a second take on an episode before, and that's something I'm proud of. But
Yeah.
that's how you know that we are legit.
Yeah.
But like we ask the universe, we ask God, we set up our life to have these certain things, but then when we get them, it's like we don't actually believe that we could have them,
Mhm.
and so we don't receive them, and so we actually reject it. Like, I mean, yeah, for you to be able, there's no difference between picking your dog up and bringing it to the groomer and picking your kid up from school at 3 o'clock and bringing
Mhm.
them to practice. If you say that, hey, I want to be able to do that,
Yeah.
right? This is your first opportunity. This is God presenting the opportunity to say, hey, Zach, do you receive this
Mhm.
abundance or not? And we
Yeah.
can say, oh, yeah, I rejected. You're upper limiting yourself, right? And so that's what I've been catching myself a lot doing too, is like, oh, man, like we just hired another team. So it's like, oh, dude, like I got more people to manage. I have more bills to pay. I have all these things. Or that's me upper limiting myself.
Yeah.
It's my energy, it's my soul, it's myself, my old
Mhm.
self, not trying to receive the abundance and positive energy. So I'm creating negative momentum against that. And then all you have to do is recognize, say, I see what I'm doing, and then you just
Mhm.
move on with it.
Yeah. I
Right.
mean,
That's what's going to create momentum.
yeah. And then in the chiropractic office too, like we had a record day in regards to, I mean, we saw 5 new patients in one day, which, being super transparent, that's as many new patients as we had in May, which is crazy to think about just where the practice has been fluctuating. But I caught myself towards the end of the shift being like, oh man, that was really busy. That was a lot. I mean, to sit down for 40 minutes with 5 different people, that's really draining. And I had to catch myself. Like, this is what I asked for, right? Like, this is, and I'm
Yep.
learning how to work through that. I can complain about it and never experience that again, or be super grateful for it, be really excited that that's happened and we're building this momentum. And so it's just, those are the things that I used to do, was have a really big day like that and then complain about it or
Yep.
feel how drained my energy was. And I wouldn't allow myself that time to rest and recoup and do the things needed. Where now it feels like it was just a regular day yesterday, and that's what it's going to become.
Yeah, I mean, you have to say like this is one of the things. Like a lot of the thing, if you're like, especially in the office, man, it was so busy. I used to catch that, like myself saying, that, dude, it was so busy, bro. I just wish that it. I would say those kind of things, and but then I realized I was like, man, like literally this time last year, I was praying that people would
Mhm.
come into my doors, and
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh man, like I have so much work to do. Good, good. Like this is what I asked for,
Yep.
because like my thing too is like, yeah, okay, I want to be able to pick my kids up every day from school and bring them home and be with them all afternoon, take them to practice and do those kind of things. And so then this is how like I reverse engineer it. Okay, my vision is to pick up my kids from school, be with them in practice in the afternoons, right? School is going to get out about 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, depending on, what grade they're in. That's going to require me to be done with work at that time,
Mhm.
right? So if I have to be done with work, that either means one, my office needs to close at noon every day that I work there, or two, I need to have somebody that can fulfill that service when the office is open.
Mhm.
I would rather have someone in there that can fulfill the service. I can't have it be Caitlin because that means my wife is working all the time and I'm not. And I want her to be a part of the family too. So that means that I need to have repeatable systems, good training, and a brand that's not built on myself for other doctors to come in there and be successful. For me
Mhm.
to do that, I have to work on myself, my personal development, my leadership to be a leader worth following that is going to attract high quality associate doctors that want to invest in our brand and our vision. That also means
Mhm.
that I need to have efficient systems that are cost effective so I can pay people a good salary to
Mhm.
make them want to stay a long time and hold their retention. Those are the things, right? So then I just say, okay, well, if I need to be a good leader, what I need to do first? First, I need to identify the places that my leadership is lacking. I need to lean into those. I need to get the resources, skills, tools, and relationships to build those up. And then I need to embody that kind of leader where people are be like, I want to work for him for the rest of my life. And I want to stay there because he treats me so well. I get great compensation and I'm poured into all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the things. And from there on, I'm acting as this leader. And so then, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire an awesome associate. They're going to stay for years. I'm going to have a high profit margin so I can pay them really well. And they're going to free up my time so I can spend time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm working for today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing too is freeing yourself from like the cost of that. Like, I think a lot of us can get into, and I know I've done it myself, and we talked about it with the upper limit, so I don't want to hit on it too much, but with more success comes more burden. And I've caught myself for like, oh, like a big vision of mine for a long time was to have 3 practices within the Metroplex. And I unfortunately let a few mentors, like, I heard the way they would speak about multiple practices and they'd be like, oh, it's just not worth it, blah, blah, blah. And so I let them take away my vision because I heard about how much of a burden it was. And I'm like, no, I got to revisit that. Like, why did I really want that? To make a bigger impact, to have a great brand. I know right now our process as from the chiropractic side and customer service side radically changes people, not just from their pain, but from their personalities, from their ability to connect with their kids or their spouse, and be better in their business, whether they're an employee or a business owner. And so to be able to do that on a wide scale is something I've always wanted. But I let the fear of that burden, or just the idea of it, take my vision away, and I'd stop moving in that direction, and it stops the growth of our single practice right now. And so not being afraid of that, and allowing others to take away your vision is something that I know you and I are both really big on. Is we never want to tell someone this is how it's going to be. We just speak from our experience and what we've done. Not necessarily that you have to do it that way, because you definitely don't have to do it that way. And you can have what you want as soon as you want it is something I really started to embrace as well.
Yeah, I think releasing the timeline, that's been a big point of emphasis in Steph's training as of recent, is just releasing your timeline of it's not going to take as long as you think it is until you realize that it's not going to take as long as you think it is.
Yeah.
Right? If you're like, oh man, like for me to have $1 million practice, it's going to take me 10 years. Or for me to become a leader worth following, it's going to take me forever, right? It's the moment that you allow your energy to embody whatever you want it to be, that's whenever it's going to start, right? You're going to figure out the steps and your life is going to change as a result of that. But the moment that you change, everything else will, right? That's how you start momentum, is you decide to change. You take radical action. That's why I love all the Andy Frisella stuff, is because you have to take massive radical action. Same thing with Liver King, right? Whether you think that Liver King was bogus or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he was doing. He was still doing the thing, right? Like he was taking massive radical action, whether you're on roids or not, dude. Like, for you just to have the courage to go out and do a lot of that stuff, get on the internet, whatever, that's when everything changes, when you decide to do that. It's like energy is like, our energy is a liquid thing, right? So when our container for energy can change, we can accept more, it can change shape, it can do all of those things. And I mean, that I think is the biggest part, is redefining what your container for energy, abundance, time, money, love, relationships looks like. And when we can change our container, then we can change what is inside of it. And that all comes from our mind. It comes from our energy, our concept behind those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what that reminded me of is that awesome mantra that Gay Hendricks mentions in the Big Leap of I'm expanding in abundance, love, and success as I bring others along with me to do the exact same. And that's really been something that stuck out for me in the book, as I am a big affirmation guy. But that second part, as I bring others along with me to do the exact same, has really made a large impact just in the week that I've listened to it and started to repeat it to myself.
Yeah. What have you ever faced, like, the idea of, what if more people, or what if other people have more potential than me? Or like, what if I'm not as blessed as other people, or those kind of things?
All the time.
I think whenever
I'm sure you'll get this being in the Metroplex. There have been moments like in May and a little bit in June before I got back on my mindset. But there were moments where I'm like, I mean, let's just sell within chiropractic in Colleyville. Let's move to somewhere where there's no chiropractors. Because I started viewing it as like, oh, the competition is beating me. Or they're just more blessed. Like, I mean, those same exact type of things. Like, this practice is just more blessed. And really getting into a victim mindset. And there was a moment where I got really bad at not catching the victim mindset, whether I was complaining or just the thoughts that were reoccurring in my head. And it really took like a big slap in the face from some coaches, both from Matt and Steph, to really shake me out of that. And it's been huge ever since. I think that was a big catalyst. And again, another big important piece, I think, for momentum that we haven't mentioned is having that coach or that guide to kick you in the butt, right? To really shake you around and be like, you've done this already. Like, you've been successful so far, and really reminding yourself of what you've done successfully, whether that was in practice or in school or the sports you played growing up, to really shape and change your mindset around success, that you are capable of success. And you've done it before, so you can do it again. Now just 10x that, right? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I talked about on Steph's podcast, is like the most pivotal thing for me is that, like, with our limiting beliefs, we take them and we build a glass box around them. And then the things that other people tell us, we end up writing them on the walls of this glass box. And the most important thing about a mentor is that they're going to stand outside and be able to take a external perspective from your world and like call you to action, to breaking through that wall. You can do it as much as you can. Like, Nola's a really skittish dog. And so, like, literally sometimes for her, like, walking through the threshold of the door is like scary for her. And like, she's terrified sometimes of walking through this thing because for some reason she's just so afraid of things that are not familiar to her. And like, we're already through the door, so I'm just like, dude, like, just walk through the door. And sometimes I have to actually pull her through the door some days. And other days, like, she just walks right through. But the more consistently that we do it, and the more consistently that I help her across that threshold, the easier it is for her. We just got like one of those bug screens that like stops the bugs from coming in. And for the longest time, she can see through it and all of those things. Like, but it just took time for her to be comfortable with it being there. And then now she just walks right through and back. Right.
Yep. And we had the same
I
thing.
think
We had the same thing with Blue. Go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought.
Well, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's the same thing for a coach, right? We have these barriers that we see through. Like, we see the potential. Like, oh, I see the 6-figure practice. I see the 7-figure practice. I see 300 a week. I see the fulfilled team. I see the engaged community member. I see the really fit version of myself. I see that there, but there's like, I don't know what the thing is between me and that is. And I'm so afraid to take the leap through the barrier to get there. And I don't know how to identify it. Right. I think that's the biggest part of the coach.
I think too, having to revisit it when you do reach certain levels. And we talked about this a little bit, but I never revisited my vision after our 30K month. Like, I never, like, to me, that was very much like, this is freaking awesome. Like, the circles I was running around, like, I was on top for a second. Like, it felt like that, but I never revisited that and wanted to expand upon that. Not necessarily wanted to, I just didn't think to. And so that just bottlenecked the business, because that was just always our goal, was to get back to 30, get back to 30, get back to 30, and never F that. Like, let's blow through it. And it's the same thing, like, going back to our dogs. Sorry, it's so fresh on my brain because I got a new puppy, but you really realize a lot of the limiting beliefs you have on yourself with your dog. And I'm sure it'll be the same way with kids. But, with Blue, he was really afraid of the leash. He didn't walk very well the first time. It took us like 30 minutes to go 20 feet because he was scared of every new driveway he saw in our neighborhood. And we could have very easily been like, oh, that was a success. Let's try to do that every time we come out. But Morgan and I were like, no, let's go a little bit further. And then let's go a little bit further. And now he's walking fine. He can go it's basically a mile. It's not great. It's not the best walking we've ever seen. But in just 2 weeks' time, he's gone from being deathly afraid of the leash to not wanting to leave the house to getting a few steps down the road to now he's going a full mile and enjoys walks. We grab the leash now and he's like fired up. So it's like, man, why can it not be the same for me? Like, why can I not continue to stretch my vision a little bit a little bit or a lot of it, and really see the big process or the big progress we make as we continue to do that.
Yeah. It's just crazy how much like it's business is not different than anything else in your life. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
thing that generates you money, whereas in maybe walking your dog doesn't. But I'm sure, I mean, people literally turn dog walking into a business. So I mean,
Yeah.
but one of the things I wanted to touch on too that you had mentioned that I think has really been big for me is journaling. I used to not be a big journaling guy. I used to think it's oh, it's so cheesy, but I
Mm-hmm.
really have noticed that the times when I can sit and reflect in a journal about something, I really can get a grasp on it because I can materialize like these thoughts and these
Mm-hmm.
things. So, what are some of the things that like you have noticed? Well, just talk more about journaling and how you feel like it affects like your momentum.
I think it affects momentum in a large way, especially for me doing it daily. One of the things I look forward to is it's a really quick prompt, but like, what are the highlights from today? That's more in the nighttime section of the 5 minute journal. And it just is three things. And it doesn't have to be, some days if it's a weekday, some days it is, 5 new patients. Um, Other days it's a good reminder that even when you feel like things are not going well, there are three great things that did happen that day. When you really get to sit down and sit with it. And so for me, that's a big piece. Is it helps reframe uh, even negative days into positive days. Um, and it's not that I like completely forget about it and like black out the negative. I don't want to like come off that way, but it definitely helps in regards to reframing each day. And then the other one that I've really enjoyed from the 5 minute journal is what would make today great. So that's in the morning. And it's again, three things that what would make today great. And I write them down, and sometimes those things happen and sometimes they don't. But it shapes my mind that today can be a great day, uh, no matter what. Right. So I think that's the big one is it really helps uh, slow down, even though it's only 5 minutes, it really helps slow down and conceptualize the day and everything that happened.
Yeah, Donald Miller in Business Made Simple also has like a framework for a journal. You can actually, I think, download it online for free. Well, I know you can because I have it set up in my iPad as a journal. Um, yeah, journaling for me has been really big too. I've been really intentional about it the past couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not always the most consistent, but I feel like I always it's like one of those things like when you talk to like your friends and like you might go a week and like we don't talk every single day but it feels like whenever we get on these shows like it it's like we just talked to each other a couple days ago, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
journaling is kind of the same for me. um Whereas in like but the more consistently I do it, the better everything gets, that's for sure. But I really like just being able to like dump, like emotionally dump or like mentally dump in a journal where I'll just like have a blank page and I'll just take a pen, and instead of me trying to think about something to write, I'll just start writing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good way for me, like to usually it's like a prayer journal, so I'll just write like dear God, and then like whatever comes out of that, and it's I
Mm-hmm.
never end up like with oh I don't know what it is, but like the moment that I like put pen to paper and I just write dear God, like I can always write like a full page.
Mm-hmm.
um and then just like dumping like that and then taking the time and reflect and actually read back on it is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
um that's typically how I use journaling because it's good for me, one, to like get into the flow and get into the flow of the day before it actually quote starts. And then it just gives me time to like reflect and just kind of like empty out a lot of the like frustrations or the energies that are maybe stuck for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I really like it. I find like the prompted journal on time, it's like almost too regimented for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in like it just feels kind of mundane, and where I like the solid blank page. But
Yeah.
uh, the last thing I want to touch on for this episode that I also feel like is a big momentum builder for me is like writing down your actionable items for
Mm-hmm.
the day. Like what are the not tasks, but just I call them um like the MIAs, like the main intentional actions,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you can do for today. How do you go about that?
I think I hit on it, touching going from more of the power list like tasks to more of a build list, and that's something we're transitioning to do in our office as well as implementing the traction, the EOS rocks from a quarterly basis,
Yep.
which are I'm not going to describe that too much because could be a whole nother podcast.
It's a lot.
But really, I mean, again, viewing these things is like, okay, what's going to push the business forward so that I'm already stepping into that CEO role. So not writing things down like, I got to vacuum the office, or I got to, buy groceries or those type of things. It's like, no, like I need to reach out to this strategic partner. Or I need to follow up with this person, or I need to write out these emails, or those type of things that the CEO would be doing, and not necessarily the technician or the practitioner, if you will. That way I'm stepping into that. I don't know if that's what you were talking about, but
no, dude, I mean, that's exactly what what I was looking to get out. But like, that's the most important thing is in your day, you have to do something that works, that like pushes your business forward. That's the biggest thing for me is like, we start our business, or at least I started our business. I started my, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And we think as the business owner and like the quote leader that we have to be the ones holding the wheel. We're not the ones holding the wheel. You have to be the one that presses the gas.
Yeah.
Or that pushes the car forward. And then even later on, you don't even have to be the one that presses the gas, like makes it go. You have to be the one that just puts it on that just sets the destination. And that's like the eventual goal. And I think that's been like really awesome to have Kate in the practice recently, is because I don't feel like I have to hold the wheel anymore. Like I don't have to keep the practice on the road. Like it's not going to crash if I'm not the one like managing everything and everyone.
I'm going to reference Donald Miller again and How to Grow Your Small Business. He uses the analogy of the plane, and you basically have a co-pilot now, right? Where you were guiding it. And if you stepped away from the cockpit, then the plane was going to go down. Where now you can step away and you can check on the stewardess, you can check on the mechanical things, you can check on the wings, the engines, all of that. All the while you still have someone else, co-piloting.
Yeah. So basically, like what I'll do is, I'm not a good like digital guy. Like I thought that I was. Like I love tech and I love software and I love how easy it makes your life. But for me to like take action on things and like to stay managed, I'm not. I just have like I always download something onto my iPad and then the iPad dies and I just never do it. But like so right now, what I do is I actually take the spreadsheet of my ideal week and I print it out and I label the days of the month on each one and I staple it together. Like it literally just says like Spencer's Planner July. And it's every single one of my days with like my time blocks. And then I'll just sit down, ideally on Sundays, but really happens Monday mornings. And I'll write down all of my actions that I want to put in each time block. And then at each day, I'll put like, what's my key action item? So like yesterday, it was like go over policies for new wellness plans. Like submit and this is like for my whole life. It's not just for my business, because the business is just a part of my life. And I think that's why it's important for me to do it around my time blocked weekly schedule that I see day to day, is because it reminds me like I also live a life outside of this office that I have to take care of as well. So like for me yesterday is like go over new policies, schedule a call with the lawyer, and then fill out paperwork for the lending stuff so I can finish all my close for the for this Friday, right? And so like those are big actionable items that help push my life forward, and not necessarily like, switch the laundry, those kind of things.
Right. And I think it is important to get away from, especially as you progress in business, is to step away from a task, like a daily task list. And I kind of like that I came up with a build list just on the spot. So I'm gonna take that one to heart. So yeah, creating a build list of how you're gonna build your business with tangible things to do each day.
Yeah, right. Like you don't have to like, if you're when you're building a house, like you don't have to be like, oh, okay, like the whole thing has to be finished today. Right. Like, but it's small bits over time that make progress closer toward the end goal. Right. It's like, what three bricks can I lay today that's going to help build this foundation? And I think that's really good.
Those 2 to 3, 4, 5 things that you do in that day, you can also get other tasks done as well. So like, still just becoming aware of the things you need to get done, or delegating, which is always great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's even better, right? The more that you can focus on like your big bricks that you can lay, the other tasks that you
Mhm.
can delegate off, that's going to build more momentum because you just make them somebody else's big bricks, right? And that's how you build a
Yeah.
team. Is because
Mhm.
and like you don't want the tasks that you give your employees to be like meaningless tasks too. I think that's a whole
Yeah.
nother episode. But
Yeah.
last thing, like how many items do you feel like is a good amount for you?
On the build list,
Yeah.
um, like I'm looking at mine right now, and it's 5 things. Um, but this is more of like the goal is to get 3 to 4 done. Um, and really looking at what's the priority, like what
Yep.
has to get done now versus okay, if I don't get this done today, is it the end of the world? No. Um, but if I have the time and the capacity, then I'm going to get those done, and they're going to push the business forward. So
Yeah. How do you,
I
and
would say
so
5, and then go ahead.
no, good.
Yeah, I mean, just like looking at it, it's just, to me, it's fairly easy to look at it and be like, okay, I do need to get these done. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's my max is 3, dude. Like I feel like if I go over
Mhm.
3, then I get more into like a to-do list. And
Mhm.
instead of me doing that, how do you attack like the priority on your list? Do you go like easiest thing to accomplish first and save the bigger tasks for later? Or do you go bigger like take the big bite and then do the smaller ones later?
Mm, yeah, I would say like the smaller ones first. Um, Not necessarily like the smaller task, but for me, I'm a big time guy. Learning to not be a big time guy. Um, but what do I know I can knock out pretty quickly, um, and then go from there. So yeah, I would say smaller tasks first.
Yeah, that's how I approach it too. Is just like from an energy management standpoint, it's like, okay, what are like the 1% tasks? Like what's going to drain me the least to where I have the
Hmm.
most energy later versus like if I put out my big effort first and then I have these small things left to do later, it's just going to feel so annoying to me. Like
Hmm.
if for me, if it's like write 6 emails today and then send like write 6 marketing campaign emails is on my like major intentional actions, and then follow up with the dentist for
Hmm.
coffee. I'm just gonna be like, this is so irrelevant to me after I do
Yeah.
my big effort. So I'll do the small things first, or like the lower effort tasks first, and then I'll save my bigger ones for later, where I can
Hmm.
like get into my flow. And then when I'm done, I can be like, ah, I'm done, and then reward myself with a break or like a workout or something like that to recharge.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I think that's big too. And one thing I'm really looking to implement with these CEO days, maybe we should talk about those on a later podcast as we're both discovering our CEO days. Um, but really being like, okay, I can put in like, if I can see patients for 3 hours straight, I can sit down and, you know, muster out a lot of work in 3 hours during my CEO time and still have time to get not meaningless tasks done, but still have time to meal prep or those type of things as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too because
Yeah.
I have a lot to say about that. But guys, if you like this kind of content, make sure that you share. If you can see us on video, send us a comment. Let us know if you like the video or if you just want the audio version.
Hmm.
Obviously, you can listen to the audio and not watch the video. But if you like the video, let me know, and we'll continue to upload it. And hopefully, we have some better backgrounds coming up for you later because that'd be cool. But thanks so much for
Yeah.
listening to the What Now podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.